Welcome back to the show where we run you through all the Dolphins news you need to know about. After you run through the news you need to know about, we run you through the fan Q&A where we answer fans' questions. After you run you through the news you need to know about, we're going to get into Saturday night's game, which was a beautiful game if you're a Dolphins fan. It's a beautiful day if you're a Dolphins fan, beautiful night of football. So let's get into the news you need to know about. There's only one news story, unfortunately. There hasn't been a ton that's happened since last week's episode. So I apologize for that, because I know a lot of you guys listen just for the news, and then kind of skedaddle when you get into the thank you and some of that other stuff. So let's get into the news you need to know about. The first thing you need to know about, you probably already know this already, Dolphins activate Preston Williams and Landon Roberts from the physically unable to perform list, the PUP list. So we're rocking and rolling, which is good. Good to have Landon back. Good to have Preston back, with a very, very deep depth chart for the Dolphins at that position, at the receiver, really at a lot of positions on this team. So, and the other news story, which is an actual news story, it's not something we're just going to run over. This first news story comes from Pro Football Rumors. Dolphins make offensive line changes. The Dolphins have traded for former second-round pick Greg Little from the Carolina Panthers. They gave the Panthers a seventh-round pick in exchange for Greg Little. Obviously, the former second-round pick from Ole Miss. They have also shifted second-round pick Liam Eichenberg from tackle to guard, according to Barry Jackson of the Miami Herald. So, there's not a lot to talk about. You know, one thing I will say about Greg Little is I've watched him a lot. The reason being my brother is a Panthers fan, so I've seen a lot of his games over the years. And, you know, he has a lot of potential. He's a very big offensive lineman. His ceiling was always high. That's why he was second-round pick. The best thing he does is run block. Where his shortcomings are is pass pro. You know, his pass protection stuff hasn't been great, and it hasn't been terrible either. I don't think it's been one of the worst. I mean, I've seen worse. Like, I've seen Dallas Thomas. We've seen Billy Turner. We've seen Dallas Thomas. We've seen bad tackles a lot come through here, like Sam Young, who obviously was a backup, but even Sam Young, I mean, we've seen some bad ones. So he's not on that level by any means. Like, he has potential. He was never that bad. It's kind of crazy that the Panthers gave him up for a seventh-round pick. Because I still feel like he has a lot left in him. He started multiple games in his career. So we'll see what he can do in Miami. It's very good. It's going to be very tough for him to make the team. But there's a lot of things that I saw from Saturday's game that I want to talk about pertaining to the offensive line. So that's really it for your news. Landon Roberts and Preston Williams are off the physically unable to perform list. We talked about Allen Hurns with a broken wrist, I believe. He's missing a year. They placed him on IR for an update on that situation. Obviously, Hunter Long is back and healthy. He played in Saturday's game. You know, he took the knee brace off. It looks like he's ready to go. So that's really it. That's all you really need to know. And, Allen Hurns is on IR. So they haven't cut him yet, which is good news. I think they like him. You know, Brian Flores is, kind of seems to like him as a player enough to keep him around. So we'll see if he's kept around or not. But let's get into the 37-17 victory that the Dolphins had over the Atlanta Falcons on Saturday night. Again, I'm sorry for the short news segment, but that was really all there was to talk about. You know, if Jalen Waddle got hurt, and Mike Gesicki seems to be fine, even though he was kind of shaken up on one of those plays, he seems to be just fine. I mean, he came back and played after that. But same thing with Waddle. I mean, that was, that's pretty much the first thing that I think we have to talk about. That was almost a catastrophe, dude. Dude, my heart sank when I saw that. Sank, dude. It looked really, obviously he was on the ground wailing, and anytime you see that, it's like, well, there goes that, But it's good to see that he's fine, and thank God. So one of the first things I want to talk about is we were just talking about the offensive line. There was two things that I noticed about this. There's three things I really noticed. Number one, and this is kind of doesn't really mean anything, so let's get this out of the way. The run blocking was consistent and it was better. And granted, it was against the Falcons defense. Grady Jarrett didn't play. I don't think Dante Fowler played. And even those guys. Grady Jarrett's a really good player, but that Falcons defense, I don't care if their starters were out there, regardless of who was out there on their defense, it's not going to be good for the Falcons. Their defense isn't very talented. So you take that with what you will, but at least the run blocking was consistent. I like the play calling. I like the runs that we ran. And at least we dominated the competition that we were that they put in front of us. I think that's the best thing I could say. But, if you're cynical about it, then you'd be like, well, it was against the Falcons. If you're positive about it, you're like, well, at least confidence, it's a confidence booster, and at least we saw some consistency, and they actually did outplay the competition that they played. So what you'll take that with what you will, I guess. The other thing I noticed is Jesse Davis at tackle. Obviously, they've kicked him out to tackle. They moved Eichenberg inside, as the news story said. Jesse, I have always thought this, and will continue to think this. He's always better at tackle than he is a guard. He's not physical enough to play guard. And I don't know why Omar Kelly thinks this. And, I've heard him say this a few times, where he said that Jesse Davis is he's a good run blocker and all this. I've never agreed with that. I've never thought he was a physical presence inside. I thought he was always more of a finesse player, and his game has always, to me, fit the outside more than the inside. So I'm glad that they kicked him back out to tackle. Jesse is, and even before this game, because we've seen him play in NFL games at tackle, has always been an above-average offensive lineman. And I just a little bit above that. I don't think he's an average offensive lineman. I think he's above that. I really do. Obviously versatile. Very rare to have a player that can play all those different positions and be good at them. And I think his best position is tackle. And with Tua's pocket awareness the way it is, and him being stronger and faster this year, and his instincts are crazy. And we've always known this about Tua. And that's one of the things I've always loved about him is he's always it's like this dude was always born to play this position. He has that intangible. And since he is so good at moving in the pocket, you really only have to have good. And Jesse is good. He's not bad, he's good. He's not average, I think he's a little bit above it. So I like the move that the Dolphins made. It looked good in Saturday's game. Eichenberg looked good. I want to hit on Eichenberg really quick. It was the first time we really got to see him in action. He played a ton, which I love. And he looked good. I thought he looked good. Take it with what you will. He did not look bad at all. I don't think he really lost any snaps, which is great. But again, it was the Falcons, so I just wanted to hit on Eichenberg quick. The other thing that I noticed, and this is the third thing that I noticed, about the Dolphins' offensive line on Saturday night, and obviously this is the big topic of the day, or the year really, of this team, is the offensive line. Is Michael Dieter started the game at center. He looked fantastic. I thought he looked great. He had a really strong finish to last year. I've said this a million times on this podcast, but when he was at the Senior Bowl, they played him at center a lot, and he did very well in one-on-one drills at center in the Senior Bowl. And I think it's about time they switched him to that position. I don't know what it is about him in center, but he plays better there. And he played good at guard last year. He was starting to develop in the right direction. But I think he has found his position. I think the Dolphins have found their center. Again, it is the Falcons. I understand that. But I thought he looked good. I mean, Tua stepped up in the pocket a lot last night. And I think that's a testament to Dieter. And even Robert Hunt, who I thought had a fantastic game as well. I thought he looked really good. Yeah, so take that with what you all. The other thing is that I noticed, I'm trying to think of what order I want to do these in. Waddle looked great. Waddle, let's just hit on some of these players very quickly, because the big thing I want to talk about this offense is the scheme. Waddle looked fantastic. He's running like a deer. He looks great. He looks smooth. His hands, everything. He's great. Tua, let's talk about Tua before we get into the big thing that I want to talk about this offense. Tua is on fire, dude. He's putting up huge numbers in a limited amount of time. He's looked fantastic. His throws have more pop on them. He's making quicker decisions. He's more comfortable. He's more confident. His pocket is fantastic. He's the tempo of the way we get up and run plays is way faster than it was a year ago. They're giving him way more freedom in the offense, which I love. It's night and day from last year. It's a completely different player. Completely different. This is the Tua, and I know it's kind of a cliche at this point, but this is the Tua that we saw coming out of the draft. This is that guy. This is that superstar guy. And he's trending. I mean, I cannot say this enough. And I was the biggest fan of the Deshaun Watson move. I am completely off that now from what I have seen so far. I know I've said this before, but this continues to just really make me feel better about the situation. And I think the Dolphins shouldn't even entertain any of that stuff now because I think they have their guy, for sure. This guy, not only do they have their guy, but he is, I think, going to be, if he can just continue this, he's going to be a superstar. And I think the biggest thing that I noticed from Saturday's game was the offense itself and the way we were throwing the football and the sets that we were running and the tempo that we had. It reminded me a lot of what Buffalo did last year. Really spread the ball around and get it to your playmakers, spread the defense out, up tempo, your quarterback, quick release. We're going to be aggressive downfield. That's what we've been doing in practice. It looked a lot with what Daboll did with Buffalo last year. It reminded me a lot of that. And the speed was very noticeable in this game. Very noticeable. I mean, Jason Taylor even pointed it out in the broadcast. It was very noticeable, and I love the way that we used Waddle and Grant in this game, where like he said, it was crossers. It wasn't, look how Chan Gailey and Adam Gase used Jakeem Grant. It was always on the outside. They always said that we couldn't put him inside. He didn't practice well at that position. Well, in this offense, he lined up a ton inside in this game, which I love, and they used him the right way. They used his strengths, which I love. With like Jason Taylor pointed out in the broadcast, they used him in a ton of crossers, which is what Buffalo did a ton of last year, and nobody could run with those guys in man coverage, and that's exactly what you saw in Saturday night's game against Atlanta, to the point where they had to switch up the defense and go to a little bit more zone. And when they did that, it was like easy pickings, dude. They couldn't man us up, and they couldn't play zone. As soon as they started playing zone, we started attacking the seams, the flats, and really just carved them up in that too. So it didn't matter what they did. If they blitzed, we picked it up. And I think it's another testament to Tua, is he's gotten a lot better at that as well. But the thing I noticed the most is the aggressive nature and play calling reminded me of a lot, like I said, a lot of what Buffalo did, and I wanted to bring that up. Just an aggressive, up-tempo offense, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun. And the last thing I want to talk about offensively, and then we'll get into the defense, is the receivers. And I don't think Terrell played last night or Saturday night. I don't think he did play. I'm pretty sure. But it was like, the Bill Walsh had that quote when he was watching the 49ers play the Broncos, where he said, everybody's open, this is going to be a blowout. The same thing happened in this game, or like when I was watching, I was like, dude, literally just pick anybody. Like, everybody was getting open. That's how good these receivers, they're really, I'm talking about even in the third and fourth quarter of this game, it was every drive. Everybody was open. Everybody. Robert Foster looked fantastic in this game. Fantastic. Kirk Merrick, he looked fantastic in this game as well. Mac Hollins continues to trend in the right direction. The receivers of this, they're so good. It's insane. This group is fantastic. The coaches have done a fantastic job of using them in the right ways, and it makes me very excited. The one thing I want to touch on before we get on to the defensive side of the football, Jacoby is he looks very good as well. I want to give him his props. He looked great in both games. It's nice to have that security blanket at the quarterback position. I wanted to bring up Jacoby. And how could I forget? The running backs looked way better in this game. And I know people are going to say, oh, well, Malcolm Brown, he scored a touch. Who cares? Malcolm Brown still, to me, doesn't look great. But Achmed and Gaskin looked fantastic. I'm glad Gaskin had this game to remind people of how good of a player he can be and how good he is. And I needed that. At least for me, I needed that to remind me of, Gaskin, he's a nice third down back, utility back. He's really, really good. And that's where the NFL is going with running backs. You have to be able to get yards from scrimmage, and that's what he does best. So very excited about that too. I think we pretty much covered everything offensively. There was so much to get into offensively that I loved. And I love the scheme. Like, defensively, when Brian Flores first got here, I loved it. In 2019, I loved it. I loved the way we played and coached and called plays. Even though we weren't obviously winning every game, I still loved the way that we were running things on defense. Offensively, not so much. I actually did like Chad O'Shea's offense. I did not like Chan Gailey's offense. I love what we're seeing from this offense. Like, this is the most fun-looking offense I've seen in a long... I don't even want to know. I feel like I've been saying that a lot lately. Like, this is the thing that I haven't seen in a long time, but it's true. I mean, I love the way we were calling plays, the up-tempo. I loved it all. And I'm even more excited now for this season. So let's get into the defensive stuff. This defense is going to be special. I mean, we just saw Xavier Howard on the top 100 NFL players as he was number 17. Byron Jones was obviously a former top 100 player. He will probably get back to that this year. Van Ginkel looks better. He looks fantastic. There was one concerning thing that I want to talk about defensively that I noticed. That I was like, a little concerned about that. But other than that, we've looked fantastic, dude. This defense has so much potential. And let's get into that right now. So, obviously, let's start with Sam McGuavin, who had 4 sacks on the night. He looked amazing. He also had a safety in this game, which was awesome. So I want to start with Sam. Something that I've always loved about Sam is his blitzing ability. It's always been great. I'm glad that Brian has kind of like, okay, I know what this guy does well, and kind of let him do that. I mean, at one point, he literally threw... I mean, he was manhandling guards. And I love the gains that we were running up front. It reminded me a lot of New England, the stuff that we were doing with... the creative stuff we were doing with stunts and stuff up front. And Sam is a mismatch. I mean, if Sam can manhandle guards like he did, with his speed and his ability to finish plays, because he's a fantastic tackler, physical player too. If he can do that... We need that on this team to play players like Josh Allen and the mobile quarterbacks of the AFC. We need that. And if he can do that on the NFL level, on a regular season level, he can be something very special. Very special. And he's a good, I wouldn't say very good, but he's a good coverage player too in man coverage. He's not bad at that at all. He's very athletic. And that's what he did so well in the CFL, and that's why he made it to the NFL. So if Sam can continue, and he's always been good at it, as a blitzer, as a versatile utility player on third down, where we can do creative stuff with him up front, he could be like our Rob Ninkovich, where we kind of put him in places where he can succeed and put him in situations where he can succeed. And I think he can be very good at it because he looks fantastic on Saturday night. Very fantastic. And I know a lot of people will say, well, this might be an anomaly. Well, this is something that he's always done very well. If you go back 2 preseasons, he had a very similar game against the Buccaneers against Bruce Arians his first year there in 2019. Sam had a very similar game. He's always had that. He's always been a very good blitzer. Very physical, like I said, player. So I'm very excited about his development. Do not sleep on him. He could become something special, guys. I'm serious. He could become something very, very special. And I think he showed that in this game. And this is not an aberration. This is not an anomaly. This is something that he's always been good at. So I'm very excited to see him being used in that creative way. So other things that I noticed defensively, the secondary is great. They had a couple moments where I was like, all right, on play action. But they just don't give up third downs. They're great. Jason Taylor said something very, very true. I think this defense is special already, but if one of those guys like Sam or Jalen Phillips can bring, and even Van Ginkel, if they can just kind of kick it up a little bit, this defense is going to be the best, not just top 5, the best in the NFL. Like, it's not even like it's going to be number 1 if they just can find that. And they have plenty of players that could do it. We saw Guavin do it. We've seen Van Ginkel. He looks faster this year. He looks better this year. I don't know what it is about him. He just looks better. Maybe it's just the team. But he looks good. Phillips, who has a ton of potential, hopefully realizes that. So, yeah, like defensively, I thought, we looked great again. The pass rushers, we talked about some of the front 7 members. McKinney, I thought he was kind of like a fish out of water those first 2 plays, but then he kind of found his rhythm, and then he started to kind of get it going a little bit. I thought John Jenkins looked good. I thought he and Sealer should get more playing time, and I think the Dolphins are right to give them more playing time than Wilkins at times. Maybe not John Jenkins on third down, but I thought John Jenkins continues to look good against the run. Wilkins he doesn't look bad at all, but I just like the way Jenkins plays against the run. And Sealer, to be honest with you, is just a really good two-way defensive tackle from what I've seen so far. So I think the run defense is going to be, at times they were able to run the football and then we kind of stopped it and snuffed it out. I think as more of these guys play together, the better that run defense. I think the run defense is going to be really good. I really do. I like the guys up front on that front seven. So I don't think that's something you're going to have to worry about. I cannot wait to see Jerome Baker and McKinney play together. I think that's going to be fun. But again, I think the biggest takeaway from defensively, not only is this defense can continue to be great on third down, and they had a great goal line stand in this game as well, but what was I going to say? Oh, Sam McGlavin. Just look out for him, because that was not normal what he did. And again, that is something that he's always been kind of good at. So the thing that worried me a little bit, and I'm not worried, I was just a little disappointed, is Jalen Phillips. I thought Jalen, he looked like a rookie. He looked lost more than anything. I don't know if they're going to have to simplify his role more, but he definitely did not look up to speed. We'll see. And again, he hasn't played a lot, so I think that's a huge factor. And I think that's why they put him in there a lot in this game. And he played a lot, especially in that second half. But he did look like a fish out of water a little bit. He looked a little kind of slower. He looked a little rusty. I think the best way I can describe it is rust. He looked like he hadn't played the game in a while. So that I was kind of disappointed in that. Because Jalen and all the other rookies have looked so good. I was just a little disappointed in that. And obviously Javon Holland didn't play in this game, which I'm very excited. I'm excited to see him play because he's apparently had a fantastic camp. But yeah, that was the only thing that was kind of disappointing with Phillips. I was like, hopefully the next preseason game we see, here he's up to speed, he's shaking off the rust, and we just gotta get to see him just go play. All right, so let's get into the fan Q&A where we answer fans' questions. I'm very interested, and again, I'm sure we will get questions from that game, so I'm excited to get into this. But, I'm very happy with what the team, and again, I was happy with how they looked last week, especially the starters. So, I'm just excited for the season. I just think the team looks fantastic. This first question comes from Julian. He says, happy to see the Fins dominate. Enough Atlanta didn't have a lot of their starters. It's nice to know we are looking this good. Go Fins. Yeah, Fins up. They looked good last week too. The starters dominated the Bears starters last week. So this is it's good to see consistency. This next question comes from David. He says, I continue to be impressed by Gaskin. It's the little things, blocking, playing to the whistle, great hands, gets tough yards. Question. Who do you think are the biggest sleepers on this team? One for offense and one for defense, and why? That's a great question, David. Offensively, the sleepers, man. It's hard to say Tua, but I do think the national media is sleeping on him a lot. Even after yesterday's game, I'm pretty sure nobody watched it because just some of the things I was hearing, it's like, what are you guys talking? Like, he's looked fantastic. So I think people are sleeping on Tua. People want to talk about Zach Wilson and Fields, and they want to talk about the younger guys and some of the older guys. They're not talking about Tua enough, I feel like. So I'm going to say Tua, even though you could pick some other players, but I think people are sleeping on him, which is unfortunate. So I'm going to go with Tua, and the reason why is he looks great. Like, he looks, I don't know how else you guys see it. You've seen it in these clips. It's translated to the preseason games. It's most definitely going to translate to the regular season. I think this new offense that they have him in is way more fun for him to play in. Look at the way this Tua is. How dare anybody have him run as many bootlegs as they did last year with this guy? Like, that's a crime, dude. That is an actual crime to this football team that they did that. Imagine asking this version of Tua to do that. That's what I'm saying. That's insane. So that alone shows you how much he's improved. And I love the way this offense is being called. So I think people in the national media are sleeping on him a lot. And I think defensively, someone to look out for that's being slept on, I would say, I would say McKinney. And I know maybe that's confusing to some people, but I think he's going to be a really, really good piece to this puzzle. And his ability to rush the passer and his run defense, I think, are going to come in clutch for this Dolphins team. So I'm going to say Bernard Drake McKinney. So that was a great question, David. Thank you for that. This question comes from KC. He says, we looked sharp against the Falcons. I had to keep telling myself the Falcons were a 4-win team last year and do not get too excited. They also didn't have Matt Ryan. Question. Overall, how do you think we will match up against the really good teams? Very well. I think we're a really good team as well. You got to remember this team won 10 games last year, and their quarterback is better than he was a year ago. The scheme on offense is better. The defense is better. So, naturally, I think this team doesn't get enough respect. And I know Dolphins fans are generally cynical about these kind of things, but it's kind of hard to deny what you see in front of you. And this is just a good football team. So I think they're going to compare very well to the good teams of the league. This next question comes from SM. He says, if you're Coach Flo, how much do you play the starters in the final preseason game? I think they have 2 weeks off after the final preseason game. So I think they're going to play probably the same amount they did in the in the second game. Because they do have a pretty big gap between their their last preseason game and their first regular season game, if I'm not mistaken. I could be completely wrong about that, but I'm pretty sure it's a pretty sizable gap. So I think if that's the case, then I think they will play a lot. To answer your question, SM. This next question comes from SM. Excuse me. He says, if you had to choose, would you rather keep a rookie or a veteran on the practice squad? A rookie or veteran? I don't know why. Sorry, guys. My dogs are freaking out outside. No idea why. Might have to go take care of this. Nah, it'll be okay. I'm sorry, guys, for the long pause. I was trying to listen. What were we talking about? Practice squad? Oh, yeah, keeping a rookie is more valuable. The veterans, it's very rare. I mean, veterans usually, I don't know, depending on who you're talking about, I guess. But I would say, generally, I'd say rookie. This next question comes from Edward. He said, would Tua get more than 200 or 300 yards in passing games? He says, would Tua get 200 or 300, more than 200 or 300 yards? Yes, he definitely can. Especially with the way, like I said, it reminds me a lot of what Buffalo did with Dayball last year. Just aggressive, stretch the field, spread them out, up-tempo, really put a lot of stress on the defense. I think, and especially if people play zone, like that's easy. It's like laying up it's like having a layup in basketball on a fast break where there's no one around you. It's just a gimme. And I just like the way it's so. Yes, Tua definitely can have multiple 300-yard games this year. So, and it's kind of surprising because I think a lot of people thought that this offense would kind of get conservative, maybe stay kind of conservative because of the defense. No, they're letting it rip, dude, which is awesome. This next question comes from the Gamer. He says, how would you rank the starting O-linemen from best to worst? I think the best offensive lineman we have is probably, I think after this year it will be Robert Hunt. I'm going to go Robert Hunt 1, Jesse Davis 2, 3. Who is 3? I don't know, 3's, I'm just going to say those are the top 2 because when you get past that, I kind of have to see everybody play some more because I like what I've seen from Dieter. And Kenley, he started off his career here hot. It's kind of evened out. So I want to watch more of them, but for right now, I think those are the top 2 on the team. To answer your question, I know I didn't really answer the entire question, Gamer, but that's a tough one. That's a tough question. This next question comes from the Dude. He says, will we and should we trade for a high-quality center or tackle? I don't think you have to worry about center. I think I like what Dieter did in Saturday's game. Tackle is a completely different discussion. They can't really you can't find high quality tackles at this point in the year. That's just not going to happen. So I'm sorry, these dogs are distracting me. So since that's not going to happen, oh my god, I lost my train of thought. Since that's not going to happen, what were we talking about? Oh, we can't trade for a tackle. Yeah, so that's not going to happen. We traded for a tackle, and if a trade were to happen, it would be for a low end. Teams, I mean, it's very hard to find a very good tackle. We heard Andre Dillard is up on the trade block. That would be a fantastic trade if the Dolphins could get that done. And I could understand why the Eagles would make that trade, because they are kind of rebuilding. So maybe there is hope for that to happen. But other than that, it's not going to happen. Unless you can find a team who has a really good tackle that's rebuilding, which is also very hard to do. So this next question comes from Julian. He says, Austin Jackson played well. Thoughts? I've always liked him. He had a good rookie year, and he's continuing that. I think he played well as well. This question comes from Jack Pack. He says, is Ahmed the clear number 2? Ahmed? He says number 2, or do you see Laird making the team? Yes, I think Ahmed is the clear number 2, and I think it's more of like, we both are the starting running back. I think those two are pretty evenly matched. So yes, I would agree with that. I think he is the number 2. And if preseason is any indication, I think you're gonna see this team be more of. I think this team is going to be a passing team. I really do. And they don't even have their starting. We don't have our starting receivers out there yet, which is kind of crazy to think about, because those guys in this offense would be awesome too, obviously. So, I think the running back thing is a little bit overblown, because Gaskin and Ahmed, or Ahmed, however you say his name. I apologize. I know I would say, like, I don't know. The point is, I don't want to say his name wrong, is what I'm trying to say, but they are really good receiving backs, and they're good in space, as you saw in that game. So I think that fits the scheme fits them too, and it does not really fit Malcolm Brown at all. So we'll see what happens with him. This next question comes from SM. He says, "Do all the wide receiver injuries worry you?" No. Just watch Saturday's game. Those guys, the way that we run the offense just fits them really well. This next question comes from Lewis. He says, do you think our defense will be better against the run this year? Yes, I do. Because of the addition of McKinney, John Jenkins, I think the run defense in the front seven is stronger, and I think it's better. This next question comes from, it's more athletic too. This next question comes from SM. He says, was it just me, or did the injury to Waddle look intentional? It did look intentional. But it wasn't. But I know what you're saying. It wasn't intentional, but it did look intentional. This next question comes from SM. He says, do you like JC Taylor as a commentator? I thought he was getting on to Tua a little too much. I was like, but yeah, I do. I like him a lot. I thought that the broadcast team was pretty good, especially compared to other ones. Like, if you watched the preseason game last week, we had, at least I did. I think it was on NFL Network. It was just the Bears broadcast, and it was terrible. And I know they're biased, but that's not why I didn't like it. I just thought it just wasn't very good commentating. And I thought Jason Taylor was fair. He criticized when he needed to. He wasn't just, fanboying it out. I just liked the way I just liked it. This question comes from SM. He says, what do you make of Austin Jackson struggling? Funny that two people have different opinions of Austin Jackson in fan Q&A. He's not struggling. He got called for one hold. That really wasn't a hold. He's playing pretty good football right now. This next question comes from SM. He says, if we keep Hollins at tight end, who goes? Okay, I don't think Hollins will play tight end. I think he probably could play tight end, though. But he won't, because that group is stacked. Matt Collins can make the team just as a special teamer, so I really wouldn't worry about him. And this last question comes from the gamer. He says, who were you impressed and disappointed by? I think we kind of went through it. I think the guys that I was impressed by the most, Tua, Waddle, Dieter. Those guys I was really impressed by. The scheme of the offense, I think, is what I was impressed most by. And just the way and the aggressive way we were calling plays. And then I would say disappointed. Like I said, I would say Jalen Phillips, and obviously the most surprised was Guavin. I didn't know how, like, that was really kind of eye opening. So yeah, that's it, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope to kind of get to more of a more productive, just because unfortunately the channel is not doing too well right now. I hope to get back to more of a productive schedule and kind of continue to try to push and grow the channel very soon. The last few days I was hoping to do that like a few weeks ago, but a lot of family stuff has happened, unfortunately, and that's really prevented me to do some of the other things that I wanted to. That's some crazy stuff happened. It's been rectified, thank God. It actually got rectified recently, and it's like an elephant, lifted off the family's back. So thank God that got itself worked out, and I hope to kind of really kind of push this channel to where I want it to be. And not necessarily numbers wise, but just I want myself to be a little bit more consistent and dedicate more of my time to the channel. Is really what I'm trying to kind of do. I want to stream more, or I want to figure out how to do that. I'm gonna stream for sure this year. I'm gonna do more things like that, and hopefully, the hard work will pay off. Because I've been doing it for so long, and I don't want to just mistreat this channel, which I have been for a while now. And, like I said, recently I was going to really kind of turn the ship around, and then this stuff happened, and I was like, oh my God. So, and then it finally got fixed, but thank God. But that is it, ladies and gentlemen. I didn't mean to leave it off on some kind of a down. It's actually positive news because it got fixed, and thank God. But and it's all positive because the Dolphins are great. And let me know what you guys think about the show and some of the stuff that you want to see down in the comment section below, because I know there's a lot of hardcore people that still listen to this channel for a while, and I really appreciate everybody who listens to this channel. But those guys, I appreciate it obviously a lot. Those guys are the ride or die guys, and like SM and everybody everybody in the fan Q&A. Pretty much every week, it was very consistent. David and some of those guys have been listening for a while. I know that I'm not mentioning everybody, but like I said, everybody who participates in this channel, I appreciate that. And like I said, I'm going to try to get this and really turn the channel around. But anyway, that's it, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you guys like this podcast, and I love doing it. And I'll see you guys in the next one.